Back again on Primetime Local News with Dorintosh Principal Michael Radford. Now, we talked a little bit in the last hour about building a better relationship with the Indigenous peoples in the community and completing the circle of reconciliation. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the specific things you've done in that regard?
We developed a program that was started by our students and staff called Culturally Courageous Land-Based Leadership. It's opportunities where we're learning from the land, so land-based education, and in partnership with other schools. So Mr. Sid Fiddler, an elder from Waterhen, which is not far from Dorintosh here, just north of us, has really been our mentor and guide. It guided us through the process of land-based education. And we've built relationships with Waterhen, MLTC, Flying Dust, as well to share in land-based education activities, and Makwasagagan First Nation School as well. So that's anything from winter netting, we've winter camping, medicine walks. We've gone to where we had fires up in the provincial park and looked at regeneration processes and why it's important that fires come through in order to help the growth of the land. We talk about protocols and Indigenous traditional ways of knowing what living things are versus non-living.
Another focus you were telling me off camera is with treaty education.
Yeah, in Saskatchewan, I found through conversations with elders and with knowledge keepers that there's a little misunderstanding around treaties and what treaties mean for all of us and how we benefit from them. So teaching kids what the treaties, the history of the treaties, what the treaties actually encompass, as well as trying to break down stereotypes around the treaties, because not everyone in Saskatchewan knows the legalities of the treaties and what's actually taken place in our history. And through understanding that, we understand where we can go and how we can build that relationship through that understanding, and maybe sometimes having that empathy for others based on some of their traumatic experiences that have taken place in their families and their history.
What's one of the most common misconceptions or gaps in people's knowledge when it comes to treaties or a specific treaty?
Some of the things that people look at it and go, well, treaty rights, well, we've given them all this money and we've given them, how much more do we need to give? And the reality is the treaties last as long as, the grass grows, the sun shines, the river flows, as well as everything that is below a plow depth was supposed to be shared 50-50. And so that's gas rights, oil rights. That's never been the case. So that money's owed, as well as there was a trust put in when Canada became a country that was supposed to go towards these treaties and these partnerships. And some of that money was actually used, for things to develop roads, to develop the railways. And that trust hasn't been fully repaid back. So these are things we don't understand when, and just trying to present the facts and the history of what's actually taken place to understand where we are now and where we need to go.
You mentioned both staff and students have developed the education program. Is that kind of a sort of a new idea of the students themselves sort of playing an active role in building a plan, I guess?
Yeah, in order to create change in our culture, it had to be self-directed by students first. And this was an idea through our culture camp that students went to that kind of ignited this idea, the Circle of Courage. So they have ownership over it. They decide what they want to learn from the land, and then it's our job as teachers to facilitate that and to make the connections to the curriculum. So we use the land to learn the curriculum. Everything's tied to curriculum, ELA, math, our writing, so that everything we do outside is brought back to the classroom for that learning intent. So the whole point of CCLL is to develop a holistic circle of learning that is student self-directed, that they have ownership and develop their own sense of belonging and relationship in our school.
Have you been encouraged then by how active the students have been in that so far, and that despite older generation sort of doubts or complaints about the way we've gone with technology and how they see this new generation of people, that they've embraced this, I guess?
The student sense of belonging that we've seen, it's been so strong of a change that we are in the works of working with the McDowell Foundation to actually measure that through research circles, which are sharing circles, where students get to tell their narrative about how this experience and how they learn has impacted their story, as well as their learning and their sense of belonging in our building. So it's something different that we can kind of measure in a different way that's a more traditional knowledge way, but is as valid as any other way of measurement.
Thank you once again for joining us, Michael. I hope you folks enjoy the rest of the cast on Primetime Local News.